Today we're going to talk about the order of operations. By the end of the video, you should have a better understanding of what order you should perform each operation in. The different operations are parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. An easy way to remember those is to take the first letter from each, so P, E, M, D, A, and S, and make a saying out of it. So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. The order in which these go are the order in which they should be performed. However, when multiplication and division are both in an equation, you perform those operations from left to right, even though, according to please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, multiplication comes first. The same rule applies to addition and subtraction. Now let's take a closer look at each operation. The P stands for parentheses, which look like this. This is the first step in the order of operations. If an equation has parentheses, you must first solve anything that's inside them before anything else. So, for example, the equation 3 minus 2 in parentheses times 2 would be solved like this. Step 1 would be to look at the 3 minus 2, which equals 1. Then you move on to what is outside the parentheses, so it would be 1 times 2 equals 2, which is how your equation would be solved. Now let's move on to the next step. The next step is E, which stands for exponents. An exponent is a smaller number placed after another number, which tells you what power to multiply a number to, or in other words, how many times you multiply a number by itself. So for example, 2 to the second is the same thing as 2 times 2, and 3 to the second would be the same thing as 3 times 3. Exponents in an equation should be solved after parentheses, but before anything else. So, for example, 2 to the second plus 3. You'd start with 2 to the second, which again is 2 times 2, so that's going to equal 4. Then you take 4 plus your next step, which is plus 3, which is going to give you your answer of 7. But what happens if there is parentheses? Let's look at the next equation. It's going to be 2 plus 3 in parentheses to the second plus 1. So our first step is going to solve those parentheses. So 2 plus 3 is equal to 5 to the second plus 1. Well, 5 to the second is the same thing as 5 times 5, so 25, then plus 1 is going to give you 26. Now let's go on to our next step. Now we're going to look at the M and the D, which is multiplication or division. This step comes after parentheses and exponents, but before addition and subtraction. Remember though, multiplication and division are on the same level, so that means you solve from left to right, no matter which comes first in the equation. So for example, 8 times 2 divided by 2. You'd start from the left, so 8 times 2 equals 16. And then divided by 2 is going to equal 8. And then 16 divided by 2 times 2, we're still going to work from left to right. So 16 divided by 2 is going to be 8 times 2. It's going to give us our answer of 16. Our very last step is going to be addition and subtraction. Just like multiplication and division, they're on the same level. So again, we're going to work from the left to the right. So, let's look at example 1. 6 plus 2 minus 1. Starting from the left, we're going to work 6 plus 2, which is 8, and then move on to minus 1, which is going to equal 7. And then the next one, even though subtraction comes first, we're still going to work left to right. So 6 minus 2 equals 4, plus 3 is going to give us another answer of 7. Let's take a look at putting all these operations together in equations. Let's look at our first problem. 5 minus 1 in parentheses plus 2 times 3. We know that the parentheses comes first, so 5 minus 1 equals 4. There's no exponents here, so we move right on to multiplication. So then the 2 times the 3 is going to equal 6. And then our last step is that addition sign between them. So our total is going to be 10. The next example is 3 to the second minus 1 plus 3. Since there's no parentheses, our exponent will be our first step. So 3 to the second, or like we said, 3 times 3 equals 9. Then we only have addition and subtraction left, so we're going to move from left to right. So 9 minus 1 plus 3, that's going to be 9 minus 1 equals 8, plus 3 is going to give us an answer of 11. The last example is 6 minus 4 divided by 2 times 3. We start with our division / multiplication, and since there's both, we move from left to right because they're on the same level. So we're going to start with 4 divided by 2, which equals 2. Then moving on to the multiplication, times 3 is going to equal 6. Then we have to add in that 6 from before. So 6 minus 6 is going to give us an answer of 0. Here are a few things to remember from this video. Number 1, the order to operate is parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, then addition and subtraction. Or you can always remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. The second thing is multiplication and division are on the same level, and so are addition and subtraction. So when these are both in the equation, remember just to work from left to right. That's it for this video. I hope it was helpful.